Good morning, students. We've been looking into the chapter of three orders. We also saw how the society in Europe was evolving during 9th, 10th, and 11th century. We started with the fact that, yes, how important agriculture was, it still is now, but we started with the fact that, yes, people started living in manorial states, and it was the nobility which was the which remained the most powerful order in the European society. The nobility, the aristocracy, they remained the most powerful in the European society. But we were also, yesterday, we started seeing that, yes, things started changing once the agricultural technology started changing, because more and more people were now start living in towns and cities, and they were naturally in towns and cities. They were not farming. They had started engaging themselves in other activities which were related to trade. And so naturally, you had to now feed them as well, and they had the money, of course, to buy whatever you would produce. So naturally, the agricultural technology also started improving, because now more and more people had to be fed from the same area that was available for farming. Okay, and today we look into the topic of a fourth order: new towns and townspeople. Expansion in agriculture was accompanied by growth in three related areas: population, trade, and towns. From roughly 42 million in 1000 AD, that is, Europe's population stood at 62 million around 1200, that is, in 200 years it went up to about 20 million, and 73 million in 1300. Better food meant a longer lifespan. By 13th century, an average European could expect to live 10 years longer than in the 8th century. Women and girls had shorter lifespan compared to men, because the latter ate better food. The town of the Roman Empire had become deserted and ruined after its fall, but from 11th century, as agriculture increased and became able to sustain higher levels of population, towns began to grow again. Peasants who had surplus grain to sell needed a place where they could set up a selling center and where they could buy tools, and cloth. This led to a growth of periodic fairs and small marketing centers, which gradually developed town-like features: a town square, a church, roads where merchants built shops, and homes and offices where those who governed the towns could meet. In other places, towns grew around large castles, bishops' estates, or large churches. So now you see that the world was moving outside the manorial states. The word was the peasants were, yes, of course, they suddenly had not become rich, but their minds had started wondering, that they now wanted better things in life. They now wanted to look at the world which existed beyond those manorial states. Okay, now naturally, as the agricultural technology improved, the production also improved. Now, students, say for example, if I am a farmer and I grow, say, 50 kilograms of wheat every month, but because of the agricultural technology, my production goes up, that is, the wheat production goes up to, say, 250 kilograms per month. Do you think I would be, or my family would be able to consume that? Certainly not. Now I would start looking for an opportunity to sell the surplus production which I have to the market. Okay, and then I'll start looking for the market and looking for better opportunities to do that. Then I'll start getting in touch with the traders who can actually buy my stuff and then sell it to the market. And probably there comes a time that I like what the traders do and I want to be a trader myself. And this is what was happening within the society. From peasants, they started first selling the surplus in the small fairs, जो कि हमारे शहरों में भी छोटे छोटे बाज़ार जो लगते हैं, मंगल का बाज़ार, ये बाज़ार, वो बाज़ार. Similarly, in small fairs, and then gradually they started venturing into bigger areas, whereby they also felt that, yes, why not become a trader myself rather than selling it to a third person, whereby he takes a percentage cut and I get less. So rather than that, I would like to become a trader and a seller or a shopkeeper myself and make more money. And this is what was happening because the towns were expanding, and as I just told you, that you do not do farming within towns, right? Because you do not have space for that. So naturally, more and more people were getting into trade. The towns were expanding. The different people now were engaging in different activities as well. Because now there were offices which were created. There were church towns, large cathedral towns. All of them started happening, and the society was undergoing a churn where a lot of things had started happening. In towns, instead of services, people paid a tax to the lords who owned the lands on which the town stood. Towns offered the prospect of paid work and freedom from the lord's control for young people from peasants' families. Town air makes free was a popular saying. Many serfs, students, this is very important, many serfs craving to be free ran away and hid in towns. If a serf could stay for 1 year and 1 day without his lord discovering him, he would become a free man. Many people in towns were free peasants or escaped serfs who provided unskilled labor. Shopkeepers and merchants were numerous. Later, there was need for individuals with specialized skills like bankers and lawyers. The bigger towns had populations of about 30,000. They could be said to have been formed as the fourth order. Now you see that the whole, now even in towns, you had the bankers and lawyers. Now you can imagine 11th century, 12th century, so much had started happening, that so much of expansion was happening. People, especially the young people, started abandoning those manorial towns and estates and started migrating towards the cities. What they would do, they didn't know it themselves, but they started migrating towards the cities and started picking up menial jobs. Some would be riding the carts, some would be as carpenters, whatever whatever actually, some construction workers, anything, because now towns were expanding, a lot of people were coming in, and everyone needed something. So you just had to fill the gap. Yeah. By 11th century, new trade routes with West Asia were developing. West Asia, that would mean the today the countries like, say, Israel, countries like, or rather the areas like Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, all these places. Uh, Scandinavian merchants were sailing south from North Sea. Scandinavian merchants would mean the merchants coming from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, these countries. In France, by 12th century, commerce and craft began to grow. Earlier, craftsmen used to travel from manor to manor. That is, we studied about the manorial state. Students who don't now start wondering what is it about. Now they found it easier to settle in one place where goods could be produced and traded for food. As the number of towns grew and trade continued to expand, town merchants became rich and powerful and rivaled the power of nobility. Now, this is something which was an important event which started to happen, whereby you have to understand the nobles, the nobles, actually I'm sorry, not nobles, but nobles were who lived in those manorial states. There was a time when the whole power was concentrated there, because you have to understand the nobles had also to take care of soldiers. They had to keep a certain number of soldiers. And you also had studied in this chapter that the knights were there, right? So all of that was there, because they were the ones who used to provide security to the society, and only then you could have uh, your trade. You can carry on with your trade and agriculture without any headache, because all that needs a security, and it has always been so, even today for that matter. Imagine, students, if you do not have Indian Army, then where would you be left with? Just imagine what China and Pakistan would do to you if you do not have Indian Army on the borders, and if you do not have the police to guard your internal borders. That is within the society. That is so. All that was needed, and only then you can carry on with your activities of trade and commerce, because that needs security, and only then people invest money, only then people think about expanding their business. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. If you know that the moment you venture out with a pocket full of money and you would be looted, you would not be interested in that market anymore, because you would feel that market to be too risky, and people would not like to spend the money that they have. They do not want to attract undue attention of the robbers. Okay, so that is how it was. Now, so that is what they are now saying, that the traders had also started becoming very influential, because naturally now they had started earning a lot of money. Of course, the nobles were always powerful strength, because remember one very important ingredient which they had, which the traders did not, that they had the soldiers, they had their knights. So at the end, they would have the last say. But then, yes, the business class, the business community had started becoming more and more powerful and influential. Cathedral towns, we would start tomorrow. Student, cathedral towns, the topic, we would start tomorrow. Thank you.